Everyone, today we are going to create a painting inspired by the work of Klee. As an artist, he did lots of amazing things with his paintings. He was known as an abstract painter, but he also was a teacher and he was a poet. And he became really famous for some of his poem paintings where he actually painted the letters of the poem into his painting. Now, sometimes he did that where the letters were in rows, but then in some of his other work, the letters were more scattered and hidden throughout. So when we do this today, we are going to be rotating our paper a little bit because we're going to hide our letters in there. So this one I did with my last name, Harrington. So the letters are actually hidden. Some of them are big. You can see as I turn it, you can find more of them. And that's because you're going to turn the paper as you add your letters. So on the back, I would pick what name you're going to use. If you have a really short name that only has 3 letters like Ben, you are going to probably want to use a different name, maybe your middle name or your last name, or maybe you combine them. Maybe you do your first and your middle, or your first and your last name. So I'll do my my first name for this one. So my first name is Lindsay. So I'm going to write it just like I normally would on the back. And that's kind of my way of checking to make sure I have all my letters. So my first letter I'm going to start with is the L. When I make the letter L, I want to make it as big as the paper. So that means I'm going to start all the way at the top edge of the paper and come all the way down to the bottom edge. So that first letter should be as big as the paper. Then I can either cross it out or put a little check underneath it. So my next letter is the I. Now, you could do lowercase letters if you want, or you could do uppercase. So that's up to you. I think I am going to stick with uppercase. So I'm going to make my letter I. Now when I do the I again want to go from my first letter to the edge of the paper. I want to start with my letters really big, and then they'll start to get smaller as I add more. So I'm going to make the top of the I with the L, and it kind of blends in there. And the idea is we're hiding our letters, so that's a good thing. All right, so there's my letter I. It went all the way from the L to the bottom of the paper. And then I can check that off. My letter N, so I'm going to rotate my paper again. So I went from here to here to here, kind of like it's spinning. And I think I'm gonna put my letter N up here. So it's gonna go from a letter to the edge of the paper, nice and big, just like that. Okay, so my next letter, I'm gonna rotate the paper again. L-I-N-D, so now I need a D. So I could put it down here, I could put it over there. I think I'm gonna do it down here. I always look for the biggest spaces I have to do these things. All right, so now I'm going to rotate my paper again and do my next letter, L-I-N-D-S. So my next letter is an S, and I am going to do it right here. Notice it's still going from the edge to a letter. All right, my next letter is an A. I am going to do it actually right here. And then I'm going to turn it again, and my last letter is a Y, and it's over here. So now, if I go back to the beginning where I see my letter L standing up, you can see I now have sideways letters, I have upside down. If you feel like you still have some big spaces and you want to start into your next name, you could. Maybe I'll do Lindsay H for Harrington. And if you want to do a diagonal letter, you can do that as well. You could go from the corner as well. Okay, so once you've got your letters fit into your design, then you're going to switch to painting. Now, when you're painting, the idea is that each space between the letters is a different color. Now, I always like to start with yellow because it doesn't get dirty if I use it first. So I am going to use my wet brush, swirl it in the yellow, and pick a yellow space. This one's going to be my yellow space. Now if you want to get a little bit more creative with your coloring, you can certainly do more than one color in a space as well. In this one, each space is just one color. But you could always do what we call a gradient, which means it is more than one color, and what happens is you mix them in the middle. So I could go from yellow here to orange and then kind of blend the orange into the yellow. So if you want to do things like that, because you want to experiment a little bit more with color mixing, you can go ahead and do that. If you just want to pick one color for a space, that's absolutely fine too. Just make sure that when you're choosing a color for a space, that same color is not already in the space next to it. You want to avoid the colors touching each other. So notice when I do a space, I like to make sure I paint the edges first. That way, when I'm done, it stays inside the lines. And then just make sure you clean your brush between colors. And when you're finished, the whole picture should be painted. All right, I hope you have fun.